Vauban.
Of course he will. Who do you think he is?
But
somebody who plays not Vauban?
But who runs Umbral builds on Vauban?
Who plays Vauban?
Exactly.
I know the one.
Please don't fucking clip that and send it to Retaliate.
The 1% of the 1%. He's gonna bully you next.
Fuck no.
Good. You deserve it.
First of all, that insult could have used some work. Second of all, the pain and humiliation I feel daily are immense. For someone like you to cut someone like me deeper, well, you must have problems yourself, buddy, so I feel bad for you, and how fucking dare you say that to me! I'm gonna make you regret those goddamn words!
Nice meme.
I wanna die! Hello, I'm here again. Now before I begin, I would first like to send this virtual hug to all of you Titania players out there, if any of you even exist, as a sign of my sympathies. Got it? Good. Now that that's out of the way, I would like to start by saying that Titania is the worst Warframe in the game when it comes to usage and tension. I might shit on Mag and Zephyr for being quote-unquote bad, but that's mostly just for memes. I might shit on Vauban for being bad, but that's because he just became outdated over time, through no fault of his own. Titania on the other hand I will shit on because she's been average at best since she was released years ago, and even now after her rework, she's still average at best, unless you play her in a very specific Tank Tanya manner, in which case she becomes okay. Now, you're probably wondering what the fuck a Katzenjammer is. I'll tell you. A Katzenjammer is what you feel when somebody asks you what Titania's purpose in the game is, hence the term, the Titania Katzenjammer. This is the case because Titania is, arguably, the only Warframe in the game that does not follow the rule of function over form, meaning that her entire design is left weak and confusing as a result. In other words, Titania is the only Warframe in the game that is more focused about looking pretty or unique than actually focusing on being useful, hence why she's essentially only used for fashion frame nowadays. There's nothing wrong with looking good, not at all. It's just that when it comes to actual gameplay, stats speak more than color palettes. Anyways, Titania in particular is very much a migraine-inducing Warframe to talk about because nobody really knows what her purpose in the game is, considering her rework quote-unquote was a travesty to say the least, and her kit is all over the place, meaning that she's kind of just useless. Her fourth ability gives her evasion, damage, and mobility, so she could be a really fast DPS Warframe, but she lacks the stats to survive when she actually does get hit at high levels. Her second ability gives her the ability to grant buffs to her allies, so she could be a support Warframe, but the buffs in question are bad, not just because increased companion damage and reflected damage isn't really helpful, but because you're forced to pick up the buff you create, and as I stated earlier, Titania might be a fast Warframe, but she's not durable. Forcing a squishy ranged Warframe to go into melee distance is confusing, because not only does that make playing Titania unnecessarily more difficult, but also because it doesn't make any sense. Take for example, the evasion on Titania's fourth ability. You would think that having this evasion would automatically fix all of Titania's shortcomings as a very easy to kill Warframe, because she can literally dodge damage, right? Just because you don't get hit often doesn't mean you're suddenly a viable option for high-level content, because keep in mind, your base stats are still trash, and in Titania's case, she has no abilities that grant her protection from being blown up by enemies other than the buffs from her third ability, which again, hardly do anything for her. Could she get a new ability to fix this? Of course she could. If anything, you can take a note out of Payday 2 for this. For those who do not know or have simply forgotten, focusing on dodging damage was of the possible build paths in Payday 2, much like how Titania's Razor Wing ability gives her passive evasion. However, Payday 2 differs here because there was an ability in-game explicitly designed to give the player a moment to reposition or get closer to their team in case their evasion could not save them from damage. And before you say it, yes, I'm still quite aware that Aviator and Agility Drift can be used on Titania to make her even harder to kill. That's fine and all, but that begs the question, Why should you have to equip specific mods to fix the underlying problems of a Warframe? Similar to how Harkonnen scope and body count are band-aids for fixing the low combo counter of weapons, Aviator and Agility Drift are band-aid mods for Titania's very obvious lack of survivability, and that's something that shouldn't happen. I don't have a problem with a Warframe that takes some amount of skill to play, but if you have to equip specific gear just to get the basic Warframe functioning at least somewhat properly, that just comes across as bad design, if not lazy, in my opinion. Why should anyone bother with playing a Warframe that demands particular mods to be equipped just so it can fulfill its role in game, when you can just play another Warframe that can do that very same job, but better? Naturally, I would like to see Titania get reworked. I might shit on her a tad more than necessary, but I still would love to see her get the rework she deserves, even if I wouldn't touch her with a 50-foot pole. Thank you for watching.